What does it feel like to be one of the most powerful beings in the world? To be worshipped by millions over millennia and be able to shape humanity as you see fit. I decided to stick with my lovely God-smacking mood and do another video exposing the fragile nature of beings known as gods. I just couldn't resist. To do that, I'm going to draw upon Neil Gaiman's phenomenal novel-turned-television series, American Gods. I love this series, obviously, because it shows the true nature of gods who have always subjugated humanity. Yes, they have helped us prosper as well, but always under their boot heels. And if you ask me, until we start to see past taking these stories as pure fact, we will always be held back by them. We are going to look at the All-Father in particular, Odin, also called Mr. Wednesday himself. No other character shows the fall of a god, as soon as we stop giving them all the power. The fact that humanity now holds all the cards, the notion of God has to evolve with technology. And it shows that the closer we get to tech, the farther from mythos and reliance upon godlike beings, in essence starving them of our love and worship. So let's jump into the words of Mr. Wednesday and see how the one-eyed King of Kings dealt with becoming obsolete. American Gods explores a world where belief quite literally sustains the divine. And nowhere is that tension more compelling than in Odin's slow, reluctant confrontation with his own fading relevance. Reimagined as the cunning and weary Mr. Wednesday, he clings to the remnants of his former glory with a mixture of manipulation, nostalgia, and quiet desperation, acutely aware that the age which once revered him has shifted toward new idols, technology, media, and modern obsessions that demand devotion in ways he can no longer command. His struggle is not just about survival, but about identity. A god who once embodied wisdom, war, and sacrifice must now bargain, scheme, and even beg for scraps of belief, forcing him to reckon with a humiliating inversion of power. Beneath his bravado lies a deep unease, as he recognizes that the myths which once defined him are no longer alive in the collective consciousness, and that his authority, once unquestioned, has become performative, something he must constantly reinforce rather than naturally possess. This erosion of power pushes Odin into morally ambiguous territory, where his choices blur the line between strategic brilliance and self-serving deceit, suggesting that what he fears most is not simply extinction, but irrelevance, the ultimate death for a being sustained by memory and worship. The only thing that scares me is being forgotten. I can survive most things, but not that. Mr. Wednesday, who is actually Odin in American Gods, isn't talking about fear in a normal human sense. He's describing the literal mechanism of his existence. In the world of the show, gods are sustained by belief, memory, and stories. So being forgotten isn't just symbolic, it's equivalent to death. When he says he can survive almost anything, he means physical harm, hardship, even the collapse of his former empire of worshippers. What he cannot endure is slipping out of human consciousness entirely. That would erase him not just from the present, but from reality itself. The quote also reveals something more personal and psychological. Odin is a figure who once thrived on reverence, sacrifice, and the weight of myth. So being forgotten represents a profound loss of identity and purpose. Without believers, he isn't the All-Father, the wise wanderer, or the feared god of war. He's just a fading idea. That's why his actions throughout the story often feel desperate or manipulative. They're driven by a need to stay relevant, to keep people thinking about him in any form, even fear or conflict. There's also a broader theme here about modern culture. As American Gods suggests, old stories and traditions are constantly being replaced by new gods like media and technology. Wednesday's fear reflects a universal anxiety about legacy, what it means to matter, and what happens when no one remembers you. In that sense, the line isn't just about a god's survival. It's about the human fear that without memory or impact, existence itself feels meaningless. It is about time the gods felt our fear, though. It might not be in much the same way we feel fear, but in some ways, I think it is. In this case, though, I believe it is more about ego. Think about it. This entity has been suckling on the power teat for millennia, having his every whim carried out. But now that the tables have turned, he is just an old man clinging on to days of yore. I would almost feel bad for him if he wasn't such a ruthless prick throughout time and space. He says, people create gods when they wonder why things happen. You want good things to happen. Be good to your god. This is a genius quote, because gods have always been the reason, the answer, the explanation. There is a lightning storm. Oh, it must be Zeus fighting with Hades over Olympus. Oh, there is a huge famine. It must be the Celtic god Balor being spiteful against man. I mean, I cannot blame our ancestors for this. They had no other vision as to what these things could be. It is called human evolution of thought and mind. And that is why when people think these things today beyond a mythical or cultural standpoint, I truly look at them puzzled. This quote exemplifies the whole notion of gods being dicks. I just can't get away from it. Some would look at it as a matter of respect. Be good to them, pray to them, sacrifice to them, and they will give you bounty in return. But this type of relationship is not exactly one-sided as it may seem according to American gods. The gods are not just being nice to us out of the kind nature of their hearts. No, I see it as they are almost obligated to fulfill our wishes after certain criteria are met. Just like in the Hindu faith, it seemed like everyone in ancient India had some type of boon from some gods after doing austere penance. So it was a quid pro quo. Give the gods our love and worship, their cup runneth over, and they would be in a good enough mood to bestow upon humanity gifts. This is a hardcore parasocial relationship, but could the gods deny us? I think that if we do all the work and feed them with our prayers, they are almost obligated to grant us favor. And if they don't, they would pay for it in some way, mainly humanity losing belief in them and starving them. We can see this happening over the millennia. God has given humanity nothing but heartache, to the point where the entire human race has inherited karmic PTSD. So it would only make sense to stop believing in beings that just do not show up for us anymore, right? The last quote I want to look at is, "Liberty is a bitch who must be bedded on a mattress of corpses." This quote tells us everything we need to know. I mean, this is how Odin views liberty, as something that needs to be built on a foundation of bodies. I guess you cannot blame the guy. He is Odin after all, who was in the height of his power when the Norse people were at their strongest and most hardy. This line from Mr. Wednesday in American Gods is deliberately harsh and provocative, and it reflects both his worldview and the show's broader themes about power and history. On the surface, he's saying that freedom, liberty, is never clean or idealistic in practice. It's almost always won through violence, sacrifice, and bloodshed. The crude metaphor drives home his belief that behind every noble concept lies a brutal reality. Wars fought, lives lost, and moral compromises made. It also tells you a lot about Wednesday himself. As a version of Odin, he comes from an older, harsher moral framework where war and sacrifice were central to worship and survival. He doesn't romanticize ideals like liberty. He sees them as tools or outcomes of conflict. In his eyes, people tend to forget the cost of the freedoms they celebrate, sanitizing history into something more comforting than it really was. At the same time, the line is meant to unsettle. It challenges the audience to question how societies talk about freedom, especially in contexts like revolutions or nation building, by stripping away the inspirational language and replacing it with something raw and uncomfortable. Whether you agree with him or not, the quote forces a confrontation with the idea that many of humanity's highest ideals have been built on very real human suffering. So, with all this in mind, does it not make sense that Odin is a bit bitter about his newfound situation after millennia of sitting on the throne, having to team up with lesser-type gods to fight his battles, when in the old days he would have racked up the hit points himself? This all makes me think of how the movie Clash of the Titans used this as well. The notion of starving the gods of our love and affection will turn them into human-type beings. Well, I'll just come out and say it.
We are the gods now.